Welcome back to Built to Ship, the podcast where we go behind the scenes with founders and product leaders, shipping real AI products into the world. I'm your host, Tyler Coastal from Voker, and today I'm really excited to be joined by one of my batchmates, Vignesh, CTO and co-founder of Unbound, the governance layer for AI coding agents. They help teams securely manage, control, and scale agent-driven development. Vignesh, it's great to have you.
Thank you for having me, Tyler.
Of course. Yeah, I'm excited to chat more about Unbound. Why don't we start with your background? What were you doing before Unbound, and how did you have the idea to start the business?
Sure. So I started my career with Adobe, building Adobe's ad campaign management, where we used to manage and optimize advertising campaigns across channels, optimizing millions of ad impression data to get the right bid, and so on. And that's where I met my co-founder Raj. But startups were always drawing me in, the fast-paced motion, the iteration, the small team energy, and so on. I joined Top Hatter India as a founding engineer, building products around e-commerce, bidding and auction,
Hmm.
and shipping a ton of product. Learned a lot during those years. I was also part of Y Combinator startup, Shogun, which used to
Oh,
build e-commerce websites
yeah.
using no coding tools, drag and drop. I know things have evolved. Shogun is still the leader in that particular niche. That startup energy stayed with me. Raj and I had been in touch for a while, and we always used to talk about starting something together. And when AI took off, I think the timing just clicked, and we thought this is the moment we have to go, and that became Unbound.
Amazing. I love that. Yeah, it sounds like a great background of, kind of larger companies on the Adobe side down to, Shogun, which is a great YC startup. I actually know a couple of great folks from there. So that's cool. Um, it sounds like you two met and you've like been interested in startups and eventually had the idea for Unbound. Was it specifically this from the start? And where did you see this pain yourself, or was it in, you know, people you were working with? Why this specific focus?
Sure. So early on, I think when ChatGPT first launched, well, the difference people found that to the search engine is that the more the data that you give to ChatGPT, the more the context you give to ChatGPT, it was able to get you a good answer, very good answer. So people started pouring in context, a lot of sensitive information, the company docs and
Yeah.
my proprietary information, everything into the ChatGPT. There was absolutely no control, zero control of what is going into these models. So when we started out, we built a browser-based solution to help enterprises manage that risk. But as we are entering into the market, selling the product, we saw the landscape shifting a bit, wherein the future just isn't more about a single vector of control, which is going to be the browser, and it's going to be agentic actions and agents taking autonomous actions. It could be the coding agents writing code, running commands, accessing tools, and so on. The attack surface went from the browser surface to probably agentic through programmatic and API access and so on. So the core problem remained the same: the security and government governance for AI. But the solution vector changed a little bit from being a browser control to actually being a gateway for the programmatic access for the coding agents and the agentic in general, broader agentic security space. So when an agent can run your terminal commands, it can access any MCP server, it can call external APIs. I think that should be a control layer that needs to be there, and that's Unbound.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think so. It sounds like, tell me if I got this right. You started on the browser side, but you realized like you wanted to go kind of closer to the source. Like people are using the browser to interact with the AI, and agentic systems, but maybe they're also going to use terminal, and they're going to eventually have these agents be autonomous in the background doing things without the human watching. And so you realized, we need to put a gateway that kind of, it's like this protective layer around all of the agentic interactions for an enterprise. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. Yeah, that's right.
That's great. And I feel
So
like oh, sorry, go for it.
I was just saying that we bring in discoverability aspect. we bring in governance aspect over the coding tools. So, for instance, discoverability aspect. What is discover? So, what are the different AI coding tools that are being used in an organization? And any employees within an organization, this could be more like bottoms up approach. The employee can actually do a coding agent from their own. They can start using any random VS Code plugin or any CLI tool that they want to use. And there are a bunch of open source models or free models available for the users to use. So they can leverage that free models. But we bring in this discoverability aspect beginning. So what are the different coding tools used in my organization? What are the vectors of MCP layers configured within this coding tools? And also from there on, we bring in more controls per tool, saying these are the transactions that are happening within the coding tools. What are the terminal command runs that it has executed? What are the MCP actions it has executed? What are the policies that you want to bring to this particular space? Do you want to block this? Do you want to have put in a control to this one, auditing it for later purpose? We do a risk categorization, risk classification of this terminal runs, whichever terminal runs. It could be like, it access your production database and do some operation there. But there are organizations which don't deem that as riskier, and there are other side of organization which don't want this production database access to be coming through a coding tool, so an agent, rather than it should be something manual. So a bunch of control layer around that particular space and so on.
Yeah, you're really illustrating how while AI is really powerful and we're excited about everything that it can do, that also means that there's a lot more vectors that we need to be worried about in terms of something going wrong, either maliciously or even unintentionally. Probably like, whoops, I said drop table, or the agent said that and I didn't even realize that I was letting it do that. I think early on in the AI adoption phase, I heard a lot of enterprises kind of wringing their hands and being like, "Oh, I don't know, worried about models and them training on our data and everything." And to me, that was a little too worried. They didn't kind of go out there and test things out. But then it kind of flipped, and everyone was just like, "All right, it's the Wild West. We need everyone to be using agents and using AI." And then now you start to get into these problems that you guys, it sounds like you're in the middle. You're helping them, be confident that everything is safe and secure so that they can move fast and adopt AI quicker.
That's totally right. The one thing that we hear from the customers that we actually sell to is they want AI adoption more faster, and probably they have us hooked in there as a guardrail so that the bad things don't happen in the organizations. They don't want to be left behind, because every other competitors are having using AI to actually advance in their particular vertical space. So they don't want to be left behind. And the particular thing that we hear is that I don't want to block any actions. I want to have blocks only on few actions, but I want to have this in place so that I will know that there is a guardrail that actually helps me move faster.
Amazing. So it sounds like both the discoverability and the observability to figure out how are people using AI within the organization, and then also the guardrails. Okay, this isn't like a new problem. We've always needed access control. We've needed security and gateways to make sure people don't have access to things they shouldn't. What makes this uniquely challenging to do in the world of AI? Like, why is Unbound needed versus some old school traditional tool?
The problem space is different. I think we have a lot of AI native energy that has helped us to move faster here, and we tap into this energy and make sure that we iterate on top of the market. So whatever gets launched, we pretty much certainly have that in our product. So the problem space is different from the old school problem. Everyone is addressing this problem brand new today. So we probably have an earliest adapter advantage to the market, I would say.
Amazing. And you mentioned that, you guys are obviously AI native. You've built this company from the ground up with AI in mind. What are some of those AI features that Unbound has? How do you leverage AI in the product?
Yeah, we plug into AI coding tool, so we kind of know every tool action, every MCP layers, and everything that is happening. So we there is a ton of information that we present to the organization. So we present various analytic dashboards. So we use a lot of LLM classifications under the hood, agentic classifications under the hood to make sure that we present information like what are the riskiest actions that happen in the organization, who are the top power users within the organization, what is the model usage looking like, what kind of we also try to bring in insights to the engineers saying, how could you prompt more better. We try to get a sense
Mm,
of, we kind of understand the entire task and try to see if there are any frictions under the task which could have been avoided if there has been more context given to the prompting. So we use a bunch of LLM based agentic actions to make sure that the individual engineers are doing this better, and the organization also gets a good understanding of the analytics and various things happening within the organization. We This tons of information. We also built an agentic layer to query this information. So in more natural language way, so people can understand. Just ask around, show the top used models in my organization in the last 10 days. So more agentic way of natural language way of querying the data, the ample amount of data that the user has. So yeah.
very cool. So it sounds like, you're probably doing like traditional integrations with, collecting the data, storing it, and then you're using LLMs to classify and decide, on the people side, like who is risky or who's kind of pushing the limits. And then on the actual like interaction side, labeling whether, is this risky? Is it not? Why is it risky? Those kind of things. How do
Yeah.
you keep track of like the performance and accuracy of those LLM features? I'm sure you trained it, you tested it early on, and then you like put this classifier out into the wild. How do you keep track of how it's doing?
It's been a big thing that's running on top of my mind. I've been working in this LLM classification for the past 6 months, and we built enormous amount of tools in house for this understanding bit. We built our own kind of evals system where we have this AB classification, how a new change is actually performing to the existing change, and we built a whole ton of layer. And we have ample amounts of data. That's the biggest advantage that we have. So we run this on, we backtest a lot on our own, the change on our own data to make sure that we are actually giving a net positive to our models, machine learning models, as we scale up with more advanced feature.
Amazing. So you've kind of built these in-house tools to do evaluations before making changes to your models, or once you make changes to your models, you can see how performance has changed or improved, or if you don't want to release that change because it's
Right.
not doing better.
Yeah. So we do
Fascinating.
have a lot of back testing to make sure that we have a lot of synthetic data. We have a data advantage that we use to make sure that we absolutely make sure that the new model that goes out to the production is actually a net positive over the previous model in place.
Awesome. That's great. And how have you been surprised by, without sharing anything confidential, how have you been surprised with like how users, across your customers are using, AI? Like what are things people should be looking out for? If I'm an executive at a company and I'm promoting folks to use, AI within the business, what are the most common ways you see, something happening, whether it's on purpose malicious or just by accident? Is it dropping tables in databases, or what are the most common things?
There are a lot of threads out in X probably that gives the best advice around, using cloud code, using cursor, and so on. But the thing that actually helped within our organization and helped that we present insights to the organizations is, ensure that there is a planning mode, ensure that you have a verification loop in place. You should plan a lot before you go into the execution. You should thoroughly read your plan before it goes into the execution, and optimize your permission mode. Things like reads can be fine. You should be fine to have the reads auto executed. Make sure that there is a control layer on top of your permission, edit permission, any write permission on anything. So that's something that I would say that we've been using. And verification layer, particularly talking about verification layer, we seen I know people using tons of MCPs, integrating with tons of MCPs to ensure that their task gets verified. This verification could be like a playwright MCP, where you basically integrate your playwright MCP to the Cloud Code or cursor, and make sure that at the end of every code generation, just make sure that you go to the UI, test the feature completely, and you see if there are any issues, and so on. So I personally use Cloud Code to do project management. I've seen people using managing their Notion linear and everything through Cloud Code. So that's another thing that we've been finding great. And as far as the security concerned, we've seen a lot of production things that happen out in the wild, production databases and accessing credentials. So yeah, a bunch of things that our models have got as risky actions, tool actions happening there.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm sure you guys are seeing all sorts of crazy things happening, and that probably allows you to build your product to detect them, and it lets you educate. Sounds like you also educate your customers on like what are best practices of how do you keep these systems safe. Maybe before we start to wrap up, I'm just curious if you followed along at all with like this Claudebot or OpenClaw kind of like what do you call it, phenomenon, and if you have any thoughts on what that means for security, or just anything that if people are now having these autonomous bots running, and any advice you have there, any concerns you have with what that means for the industry or security in general.
The number one thing is it's not supposed to run in your local machine. And I see people, we have a discovery tool that detects OpenClaw running in local machines. So the number one flag that we see is the OpenClaw is not supposed to run on your local machine, and it has to be server. And of course, this OpenClaw is great. The buzz around OpenClaw is basically the energy around the long running agents is here, right? So it's basically a long running agent that's there for a long time and doing actions on your behalf. There is a lot of tool action calls that is going on to the space. What are the tools that you want to to have permissions? What are the tool actions that you want to come to you for an approval layer before that gets executed? So there is a tons of security control layer aspect to that Cloud Code aspect, not Cloud Code, Claudebot, OpenClaw aspect in general.
Makes sense. Yeah, it's a whole new world. Like every day, it feels like there's some new technique or new exciting technology. So I'm sure it keeps you guys busy with, keeping all the security up to date. And it's a lot that you're taking off of your customers' shoulders by doing that. I want to put your website up on the screen before we have to go. Maybe you can share. It's getunbound.ai. Maybe share a bit with the audience. Who should check out Unbound? How can they get in touch or follow along?
We have multiple ways of distribution. So if you are an individual developer, do use Unbound to plug in your AI coding tool to see your usage and get better insights about how you can make your AI prompting better. And we do have CISOs of the organization. They can also sign up to enroll their organization here. We have various amount of MDM controls, mobile device management controls, to ensure that it can be propagated through your to all the devices within the organizations. The sign up button that helps you to get enrolled.
Amazing. And I love this crazy coding tool actions that you've seen, kind of alluding to what we were talking about earlier. Well, thanks again, Vignesh, for taking the time to chat and to share learnings and insights about the space. It's moving so quickly, and we all want to take advantage of the tools that exist out there, but we also want to do it in a safe and secure way. So it's exciting to hear that you guys are working on making that possible for all sorts of companies. Thanks again for joining. Appreciate everyone who listened today to Built to Ship. If you're building something, go ship it, and see you next time.